How can we change the gender balance in traditionally male-dominated fields? The tech industry is one that's been known to be male-dominated. I have a lot of clients in the tech industry, and some of them feel very daunted by this problem, often wondering if they'll ever get a chance to get the recognition they deserve. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with a leader in tech that's been a change agent in this way, and to learn more about what's happened to help her be more successful in her career. I'm Jill Avey, a career success coach, and this is SisterSmart Leadership, the show that explores how women can rise from director to vice president and beyond by fully leaning into their feminine energy as their biggest advantage. Let's get you one step closer to the recognition and promotion you deserve. Sumi Singh is the corporate vice president of engineering for Microsoft Teams. She's had an amazing career with Microsoft for 26 years, originally starting in Windows and then moving to the Office business. And now she's been with the Teams unit for 2 years. I met Sumi through one of our Sisters in Leadership members, and she had worked for Sumi several years ago and recommended that we talk. My client had been with Microsoft for 14 years at the time that she started working with Sumi. And up to that point, she'd been the only woman on the team. And when Sumi left, she had women 3 levels above her and still does today. And that means a lot to her because it's really changed her environment. As well, there's a much better gender balance on the teams themselves. She noticed this all started to change when Sumi became their leader. As you can imagine, I was excited to talk to her and hear about how she brought this kind of change and how we can learn from her experience to advocate for and create better gender balance in our organizations. So, Sumi, I would love to hear from you how you did this. How did you change the gender balance under your leadership? I know it happened a little bit organically, but there was also some intention that you had to.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, Jill, thank you very much for having me here. And thanks to our common friend and your client who recommended that I come here. The question that you asked, the tech industry is definitely a very male-dominated industry. I think back to when I first joined Microsoft and I joined Windows, and there were just very few women. And in some ways, you almost got, you got numb to that fact. Like I never really noticed, I stopped noticing how few women there were. But when I was a leader in Office and when I became what in those days was the development manager and then the group engineering manager, I used the opportunity whenever we had openings, especially for my directs, my leadership team. I was extremely intentional about the kind of candidate that I would bring in because they would set the tone and culture in the team. And it sometimes took longer, but you again have to be very intentional and patient. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that by myself being a woman in tech, it's easier for me to naturally attract other women or at least get them to be curious. But then I also cast a very wide net. I was patient and I heavily leveraged my senior women's network as well as there are distribution groups in Microsoft for women. I advertised my job postings there, talked to a lot of my other women leaders across the company for referrals. And I think showcasing my team's success and supportive culture, that's like, it's not just me going and seeking out good candidates, but even the candidates coming in and asking, why should I come here? And for them, it was important to see that the team I was in or the way I ran the team, there was a very supportive culture and we led with inclusion. And so I think that was one of the reasons I was able to attract a broad range of candidates. And I want to say it's not just women. I almost think the number of women is a proxy metric for how open, collaborative. So it's not just attracting the right women, but attracting, honestly, the right kind of candidates that I wanted for the role. And once you have one, it's always hard to get that first woman director, that first leader. But once you have them, it creates this virtuous cycle, right? As more women joined the team, it naturally attracted even more talented women. And that flywheel just sort of continued. And very proud to say at that point, under my leadership, we achieved a 50-50 gender representation in my direct leadership team, which is almost unheard of at that time, at least.
And I love that it wasn't just didn't turn into all women. We're not trying to take over, that you were really looking for balance and really including everybody. And that worked really well for you. And I think another point that I wanted to highlight here is you're advertising how the team was doing. And so you're going to perform well here and it's going to be a great culture to work in. And so then that can help attract people more. What are some of the skills that you saw women bringing to these roles that you were looking for?
So while these skills are not unique to women, women do have many of these, especially collaborative skills, interpersonal awareness, all of the things that I think leads to a very strong team dynamic and team environment, which honestly, the stronger and more diversity there is in the team, the better products we build, right? At the end of the day, it makes complete business sense. And I definitely saw that with women. The other thing I like to talk about is the power of the collective. That's really important to me. There is no singular person that has all the best ideas or all the best. And I feel that women excel at bringing together people with these diverse perspectives and harnessing them in a good way. It's not just consensus oriented. I don't want to fall into the stereotype of women are consensus seekers, but it's about how they harness these diverse perspectives. And I think what I've seen work, right? Women or, again, anybody who is able to build up these collaborative teams, they have really good listening skills and active listening skills. And the commitment to continuous learning, growth mindset, making sure we are always learning, evolving, and improving. And that really enhances our decision making and overall innovation. So I've seen this work in practice, right? And while these are, again, as I said, these are all soft skills that are naturally attributed to women, I would also remind it's not just these soft skills. The other thing that at least I look for, and which many of my women directs are amazing at, is the ability to dig in deep where needed, get their hands dirty in core, in all the technical decisions, that leading from the front, being part of it, it's not just you're delegating or giving orders. You are working with the team. I think those are and engineers very much value that when you speak their language, when you're in it, in the details with them. So I think those are some of the skills that I think really help.
Yes, I've seen all those strengths in women too. And there's a study that showed that women outperform men in 17 out of 19 leadership skills. And the two that are at the bottom are strategic thinking and technical skills. And I actually want to challenge that because I think women are very strategic, can be very great at technical skills, but it's just maybe not always what we're talking about. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a known fact. That's why I made it a point to call out the fact that women are technical. They are down in the details there because there's usually a perception of women are just great at the soft skills. Women are great collaborators. They drive decisions. There have been studies done, right, externally, and I've seen this internally also. Even when you write about someone's promotion, the way you write about the kind of impact that you write about for a woman and what you write for a male is a little different. And it's unconscious biases there. Like you'll see terms like collaborator, brought people together, drove this across the org for women. And then for males, you'll say like delivered single-handedly, architected and all of those things. And this came across even recently where there was someone who actually took a look at, and especially using now that we have large language models and everything, took a look at a vast swath of promotion justifications and pointed this out. And, across the team, we intentionally looked at those and made sure that we were not falling into that trap and not falling prey to that.
Oh, that's fantastic. You're doing that kind of research and really looking at that because these little things can make a difference in someone's career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So changing the narrative a bit. I don't think it's that women are only one or the other. Nobody is women or men, right? But it's making sure that all sides get the visibility and all the skills get the visibility rather than honing on just this. Like women, of course, are really great at collaboration, but that's not the only thing that they do.
Yeah, right. I also love that you were mentioning that the men that you hired as your leads also had these skills. And so we're highlighting that men can do this too. It's not just women and really valuing these skills as a whole and saying, this is something that we're looking for. Yes, women are great at it, but men can be as well.
Yeah. No, in fact, the males on my team, they specifically, I attracted them from other places and they specifically spoke about this aspect, which is, it's not like men don't like that kind of environment. They were seeking that out. And it was just great to see that. And that's why I say, when you look at D&I efforts, usually the metrics you'll have is you'll count, okay, how many women are on team, how many across other ethnicities and things like that. And those are great. But again, it's important to see, those are, as I said, proxy metric for what makes a good collaborative environment. That is not the only goal, right? Yeah. That just feeds into having a better team.
Oh, yes, I love that. And you also mentioned using your network for finding people. I would love to hear a little bit about what your network is and how you've developed. Part of what we're talking about this season is our network and our support system. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about that from you as well.
Yeah, so I would like to say it's happened very organically for me, for the most part, especially in the early days, whether it was my managers, whether it was some peers that I was very influenced by, some other senior women leaders who looked out for me or made sure I got the visibility that I needed. It all happened very organically. But it wasn't until I went up the leadership chain that I realized that I needed to do this much more intentionally. It was also around this time. The great thing is, especially in the last 5 to 7 years, or even more than that, this has become a topic we talk about quite often, right? And we don't just talk about it for the sake of talking about it. There's a difference. And I attribute a lot of this to when Satya came on board at least Microsoft, the way I saw it. And I think there's a great articulating what diversity, inclusion, and then belonging means, right? Articulating what is needed for it. And that is sort of where the support, sponsorship, and allyship, those are the three things that become really important. And that is where I started first, me internalizing that vocabulary, which I know existed, but, we never explicitly spoke about it. And then intentionally trying to see where I was leveraging, whether for myself or providing it to someone else. So we have across the org, not just my team, but across the org, our leadership actually puts different mentoring circles, leadership circles, specifically bringing together women from across the company, women from across our org. And those were some of the places where I formed the best connections, actually getting to talk to women who would maybe sometimes face the same struggle as me, or who, like-minded people who I also have to say, I'm not someone who is very intentional and who plans out everything or who's had a lot of problems. I'll just be very honest. I like to say my career happened to me rather than the other way around. But it was just great to connect with other women of that kind and share our learnings, share our frustrations sometimes, and just form this allyship for how we help each other and get along. So
not every company has the breadth of people that Microsoft does. So it's something that people can plug into, like what you have. So That's really fantastic. As you've moved up through your career, what are some ways that you've had to push yourself, or where have you had to grow through your career?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. As I said, initially, at least till I became a dev manager, group engineering manager, opportunities sort of kept opening up. I did not have to go and ask for roles or ask for the next promotion. I did great work and I was rewarded. And when opportunities opened up, I got them. And that all worked great until I became a partner at Microsoft. And I had been in role for a while. And there was this itch of what's next for me? What should I do? And I realized that was the first time where there wasn't something just falling in my lap. As you keep growing, the funnel narrows in terms of the number of roles and opportunities that are available. And I realized that I needed to be more forthcoming, or to let my manager and my skip level know what I wanted. And I'm not naturally a person who goes and asks for this. So the first time was hard mustering up the courage to do that. But I'm just so glad I did it, because at that time I went and spoke to my skip level manager about what was happening across his org and what were the kind of positions that were available and what he thought of me for those positions. And it was interesting because I realized that he did not know that I was seeking something bigger or something more, or something where I wanted to grow in my span of control or take on more organizational leadership challenges. He thought I just wanted to go deep technically and continue in there. And so that, to me, that was like an aha moment. I'm like, if I don't speak for myself, I'm saying no to myself, because how are they to know what I want? And so that was a turning point for me. So I definitely started becoming more intentional of making people aware of what I'm looking for, and so as it so happened, 2 months after I spoke to him, there was a position that opened up, which was reporting directly to him. It was a director role, and I was the first person he called. I took on that role. And then similarly, I was doing a back-end growth infrastructure role, fundamentals role out there, and I was having a lot of fun. But then that looking ahead, right, I was completing 4 years, and we have our, what we call connects, which is our twice a year, we do feedback and perspective and reviews with our managers. And I was doing that with him. And I thought a little, and I put down, I'm having fun, But next year I will be coming up on my 5-year mark, and maybe I want something different. Maybe I want to go back to doing more products that are user facing. This has been exciting, and I put it out there. And that was great because, again, those things get discussed at our executive vice president level. And when this new team's role opened up, again, they called me. I was the first person they called me. So the thing that I've taken away from this is be very open with what you're looking for, be planful, not like completely orchestrating every little thing because things fall in place when they fall in place, but at least making sure that people are aware what you want and where you want to go. So that's a lesson that I've taken, and that's a lesson I give a lot of my mentees.
Yeah. And that there's a way to do that without saying, I'm unhappy where I'm at and I'm leaving. It's just like you're thinking about your next steps and here's a direction that you'd like to head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I was like, especially with my last role, I was very happy and I was still growing, right? It's not to say. But then thinking ahead, because I had realized how hard the more you go up, the funnel just keeps narrowing so much. So that is why you have to start thinking a little further. When you're in the middle management layer, there's many more. Maybe you don't need to think so far ahead. But then I realized, like as I grew, that I needed to be more, the foresight of thinking much further ahead had to expand.
Yes. And what are some of the things that you've had to grow and change with as you've gotten into senior leadership?
Oh, I'm still growing and changing. Senior leadership, more so than ever, my biggest role for the team is setting the right, firstly, creating clarity. We have leadership principles, creating clarity, generating energy, and delivering success. And really, creating clarity is all about making sure that the org is aware of what our prioritization framework is, what we are doing, why we are doing it, how we will do it, and the ways that we have to measure success towards it. So that really is first and foremost my primary thing that I drive, and I've learned to. I don't have to be in the details for that, but I have to do such a good job of communicating. This is where communication, your voice, showing up in different places just becomes very important. And you can't do this in one-on-ones, right? Like I have a 1,500 person org. There's no way I'm talking to everybody. So again, what is that rhythm of business? What are all my touch points and places where I'm able to reach a broader section of the organization? And the other thing I've learned is it's not enough to just say that once. You have to keep saying it and keep reminding and keep coming back to it. So it's almost a constant cycle, right? And then the second thing, the generating energy is, I go back to, if you have the right place, the right team dynamic, people have to feel like they belong and they have to have fun while doing it. And so we do intentional things, and this is not me, this is all thanks to Microsoft. We do things like fix, hack, learns. Like we have weeks where everyone just stops what the normal, usual scheduled work is, and they take 1 week just to do out-of-box thinking, right? If you wanted to go do anything, you wanted to go fix this gnarly thing that never rises up to the top, but it's been bothering you, go do that. Hack, come up with hack projects. Learn. You want to learn about the latest large language models? Great, this is the week. So giving that open and empty space, I think that is something that really fosters a healthy team, a healthy and thriving team. And then the delivering success. And when I say delivering success, the thing that I work very hard to ensure at that scale is delivering success is not just delivering features or shipping features. It is actually making sure those things work with the customers. And if they don't work, not shipping them. We actually try to celebrate not shipping something because we've not put something bad out there for our customers. And so all of this is very, there's culture, there's process, and there's like, how do we work efficiently and how do we make it a fun place to work? So those are the things that I've had to scale up to. Obviously, technical decision making, while I'm not in the details of every feature stepping out, you have to have sound technical judgment when you're making big architecture decisions. So having the right touch points for those and being involved in those is super duper important and critical.
How do you make sure that you're keeping an eye on all the things going the directions they should be going?
So this is where having those touch points as well as very structured ROB, as we call rhythm of business meetings, is super duper important. We do planning in 6-month cycles. We have our OKRs, outcomes, key results that have been defined. And then at these regular meetings that we have, we are tracking progress towards that. And most of the time things are going fine, but many a time they don't. And it's because of various reasons. Things change around. So there's always a point of, okay, do we need to pivot? Do we need to reassign people to this? Do we need to maybe pause it. Those are the kinds of decisions. But having, I would say at my scale, having that very well-defined rhythm is extremely important so that we don't let things slip through. We, of course, have a bunch of metrics and monitors and alerts to make sure our product quality and everything is up to the bar. But having these meetings is a great forcing function to ensure we're all on the same page. The other thing is what these also do is bringing together people from across the org, right? It's not just the work that I do, is not just my work, but sometimes it requires partnership with many different orgs across the company. And many times getting people together for these meetings are a forcing function for the people who work on it to talk before the meeting and make sure everything is. So sometimes the power of the meeting is not what happens at the meeting, but everything else that happens prior to it. So that by the time we come to the meeting, it's all nicely figured out.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that cadence piece because so often, especially in smaller organizations that don't have that same structure that you would have, then things tend to either drop off or get done ad hoc, and you start to lose all of the collaboration that you could get. And there is a lot of people like to rail against meetings. There's definitely a lot of good that comes out of them when they're done well.
Yes. No, a lot of meetings is definitely one of the things that it's a fine balance. You can't have too many. You can't have too little. What's that right balance? And it is also the kinds of meetings are also constantly changing depending on your priorities. I like to say once something is on cruise control, I don't need to be in all of those meetings, right? That's not where I'm adding value.
Are you diving into the details on certain things though?
Yeah, so this is something I can't take credit for. It was my manager who actually said this, and I tried to really follow that. I like to dive into things that are either broken or new, right? Broken, not broken because it's like getting a good understanding. And also they might require my presence and my help in driving to resolution, either within the team. Sometimes it's about getting different parts of the team together to see things the same way. Sometimes it is about reaching across the aisle to other orgs, on which we might have dependencies. So that is one. And new, because new is like, that is my role, right? It is not just in the today, but it is making sure that we are set up for the future, that we have the right product architecture that sets us up well for the future. So with a lot of the new AI stuff that's coming in here, I'm heavily involved in those things.
Fantastic. Oh, thanks so much for sharing all this with us. It's great to be able to talk with a senior leader like yourself and give the women in my community a look forward of what they can be shooting for as they rise up in their career. I really appreciate what you've shared with us today. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, thank you. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to come and share these things. And really wonderful questions that you asked me. It caused me to also think. And then I'm like, yes, this is what we do in the natural rhythm of things. But honestly, the thing that I would tell my biggest learning and takeaway is be strong. Don't be strong. Don't be fearless. Don't be scared of asking for what you want, but doing it, as you said, in a good way. And just bring your authentic self all the time. I think that is something that has worked really well for me.
Yes, I think it's tempting to want to be somebody else and be like the people that we see are successful that are different from us, rather than just really reaching deep in and saying, here's what I have to offer. And I understand myself, and I know that this is what I have that's valuable. And here's how I can help. And that can be so much better.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jill.
Oh, thank you for being here. I would love to hear what you found most helpful from this conversation. Let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Would you like to take your career to the next level? I invite you to check out my 7-Step Passport to Promotion private podcast, where I go through the process that we use with our clients to put them on their path to promotion. I will also share some stories from our clients' success so that you can see how it's worked for women like you and hopefully work your way up to the ladder like we've seen Sumi do. If you'd like to dive deeper into women's leadership and how you can move up in your career, subscribe either on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm on a mission to help more women get into leadership and stay there. And if that's aligned with you, I'd love to have you be part of this community and tune into more episodes on SisterSmart Leadership that will support you in becoming the leader that you want to be. If you're ready to fully lean into your feminine leadership and get promoted from director to vice president and beyond, hit that subscribe button so you'll get all the episodes to come. And check out the recommended video here to see how women are rising up without playing by the old rules that built these male-dominated industries and systems.